Dr. Lucas Grant was pacing the sterile corridors of the Zalara Interstellar Outpost, finishing up his nightly rounds. As the station's lead medic, his work was often routine, patching up miners with minor injuries or handling the occasional outbreak of space flu. It was far from the excitement he had envisioned when he first left Earth to pursue a career among the stars. That monotony shattered when the emergency alert blared through the station's comm system. Emergency. Unidentified craft has crashed near mining sector Delta. Casualties expected. Medical assistance required immediately. Lucas grabbed his emergency kit and sprinted to the hangar where a team of responders was already assembling. The mining fields were notoriously dangerous, with their sharp crystal formations and volatile energy bursts. But a crash landing was an entirely different level of peril. The rescue team's transport vessels sped across the desolate terrain, the harsh, red-tinged light of Zalara's twin moons casting eerie shadows. As they approached the crash site, Lucas could see the wreckage, a sleek, silver ship that looked nothing like the clunky mining craft he was used to. Its design was intricate and almost organic, as though the ship had been grown rather than built. "Stay back until we confirm it's safe," barked the team leader. But Lucas was already moving toward the wreckage, his instincts taking over. Inside, the scene was chaos. Sparks flew from broken consoles, and the acrid smell of burning metal filled the air. Among the twisted remains, Lucas spotted movement. Pushing through the debris, he found an alien woman slumped against a console, her body covered in ornate robes now stained with blood. Her skin shimmered faintly under the moonlight, a pearlescent hue that seemed to pulse with an internal glow. Despite her grievous injuries, her features radiated a regal dignity. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Lucas asked, kneeling beside her. Her eyelids fluttered, revealing golden irises that locked onto his. "Help me," she rasped, her voice carrying a resonance that sent a chill down his spine. Lucas quickly assessed her condition: deep lacerations, fractured bones, and severe blood loss. He activated his medical scanner, but the readings were unlike anything he'd seen before. "Vitals unstable," the scanner chimed. "Species unknown, high risk of organ failure." "Grape," Lucas muttered. "This is way above my pay grade." He applied a coagulating gel to her wounds and started an oxygen infusion. But her condition continued to deteriorate. The scanner beeped frantically, indicating critical levels of blood loss. She weakly grabbed his arm, her fingers trembling. "Don't let me die," she whispered, her voice fading. Lucas's mind raced. He had no idea what kind of blood she needed, and there was no time to synthesize a compatible supply. His gaze flicked to the scanner, which displayed a surprising compatibility rate between her biology and human blood. It wasn't perfect, but it might be enough. "This is insane," he muttered, rolling up his sleeve. Lucas sterilized his arm and connected a transfusion line from his vein to hers. It was an unprecedented gamble, but it was the only chance she had. As the first drops of his blood entered her system, her body convulsed violently. Lucas flinched, fearing the worst. "Come on, stay with me," he muttered, watching her vitals. For a moment, the scanner flatlined and Lucas's heart sank. Then her breathing steadied. The color returned to her skin, the pearlescent shimmer growing brighter. Her wounds began to close, the gashes knitting together at an almost unnatural speed. "What the?" Lucas breathed, staring in disbelief. Her eyes snapped open, glowing intensely as they fixed on him. She gasped, her chest rising sharply as though she had been pulled back from the brink of death. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice stronger now, though still tinged with exhaustion. "Dr. Lucas Grant," he said, his voice shaky. "I'm a medic. You were dying, and I improvised." She stared at him, her golden eyes filled with something he couldn't quite place. Shock, gratitude, or perhaps awe. "You gave your blood?" she asked, touching her chest where the transfusion line had been connected. "I didn't have much of a choice," Lucas said, trying to sound nonchalant despite the surreal moment. "It seems to have worked, though." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "You have done more than save me, human. You have bonded with me." "Bonded?" Lucas repeated, his brow furrowing. Before she could explain, the rescue team arrived, their voices echoing through the wreckage. "Dr. Grant, are you all right?" "I'm fine," Lucas called back. "We need a stretcher over here." The responders carefully extracted the woman from the wreckage, their movements slowed by her delicate yet commanding presence. As they carried her to the transport vessel, she reached for Lucas, her hand trembling but insistent. "You have my gratitude," she said, her voice carrying an undeniable weight. "I am Maricela, Queen of Chiron, and you have done more than you know." Lucas stared after her as the rescue team secured her in the transport, her words ringing in his ears. "Queen," he murmured to himself. "What have I gotten myself into?" As the transport sped back to the outpost, Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that his act of desperation had set into motion events far beyond his understanding. And somehow, he knew his life would never be the same. Back at the Zalara outpost, the medical bay buzzed with an intensity Lucas hadn't seen in years. The alien queen, Maricela, as she had introduced herself, was stabilized but still fragile. Her recovery, while miraculous, required constant monitoring. Lucas barely had time to process the gravity of the situation before diving into action. Her presence had drawn attention. The outpost commander, Captain Aaron Vale, entered the bay, his expression grim. "Dr. Grant, what exactly happened out there?" Lucas, hunched over a medical scanner, didn't look up. Found her in a wrecked ship, critically injured. Standard treatments weren't working, so I improvised. Vale crossed his arms. "Improvised how?" Lucas hesitated, then sighed. "I gave her a transfusion, my blood." The room fell silent. "You did what?" Vale's voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "I didn't have a choice," Lucas said, meeting Vale's glare. "She would have died otherwise." Vale pinched the bridge of his nose. "You realize the diplomatic implications of this? You just performed an unauthorized medical procedure on an alien monarch. And saved her life," Lucas countered, his tone sharp. "You're welcome." Before Vale could respond, a soft but commanding voice interrupted. He did what was necessary. Both men turned to see Maricela sitting upright on the medical bed, her golden eyes glowing faintly. Despite her weakened state, she radiated an undeniable authority. "Queen Maricela," Vale said, bowing slightly. "Forgive me, my concern is for your safety and the potential consequences." Maricela raised a hand. "There is no need for concern. Dr. Grant's actions were not only justified but extraordinary. He has earned my gratitude." Lucas felt a strange warmth at her words but quickly returned his focus to her vitals. "Your Majesty, your condition is improving, but you're not out of the woods yet. You need rest." Maricela's lips curved into a faint smile. "Spoken like someone who does not yet understand the resilience of my kind. Still, I will heed your advice." Vale nodded reluctantly and exited the room, leaving Lucas and Maricela in relative quiet. "You risk much to save me," Maricela said, her voice softer now. Lucas shrugged, trying to downplay his actions. "It's my job." "No," she said, her golden eyes locking onto his. "It is more than that. You have given a part of yourself, literally. Among my people, such an act creates a bond that cannot be ignored." Lucas frowned. "A bond? You will understand in time," she said cryptically, her expression unreadable. "For now, know this. Your actions have ensured that you will not be forgotten." 2 days later, the outpost descended into a frenzy. A massive Chironian vessel, larger than anything the humans at Zalara had seen, entered orbit. Its sleek, crystalline design sparkled like a star, and its presence alone was enough to send a ripple of anxiety through the station. "They're here for her," Vale said grimly as he joined Lucas in the observation deck. "You'd better prepare yourself." Lucas watched the ship dock, its shimmering hull reflecting the pale light of Zalara's twin moons. "Prepare myself for what?" Vale gave him a pointed look. "For meeting a king." The outpost's docking bay was transformed into an impromptu reception hall. Guards lined the walkway, and the station's personnel stood at attention. Lucas felt out of place in his standard medical uniform, but he had little time to dwell on it before the ship's ramp extended and a procession of Chironian dignitaries descended. At their center was King Thalric. He was taller than Maricela, his golden skin gleaming like burnished metal. His presence was magnetic, his every step commanding attention. His eyes, the same luminous gold as his mother's, scanned the room until they landed on Lucas. "You are the human who saved my mother," Thalric said, his deep voice resonating through the hall. Lucas stepped forward, his nerves fraying under the weight of the king's gaze. "Dr. Lucas Grant, Your Majesty. I just did what I could." Thalric studied him for a long moment before nodding. "Your actions were brave. More than that, they were selfless. You gave your own blood to save her. Among my people, such a sacrifice is unparalleled." Maricela, now fully recovered, stepped forward, her movements graceful. My son, without Dr. Grant, I would not be standing here. He has earned my life and therefore my loyalty. The room fell silent. Lucas could feel the weight of their words, the implications dawning on him. Thalric's gaze softened slightly. You have not only saved my mother, but preserved the stability of our realm. Such an act cannot go unacknowledged. Return with us to Chiron. There, I will reward you properly. Lucas blinked, stunned. Reward? Yes, Thalric said, his tone firm but kind. You have proven yourself an ally to my people. It is only fitting that you see the world you have saved and receive the honor you are due. Before Lucas could protest, Maricela smiled at him. It seems, Dr. Grant, that your journey with us has only just begun. As the Chironians prepared for departure, Lucas felt the weight of the moment settle over him. He had come to Zalara for a quiet life, but fate had thrust him into the orbit of royalty and a destiny far greater than he had ever imagined. Lucas stood on the observation deck of the Chironian vessel, gazing out at the vast expanse of stars. The ship's interior was a marvel, sleek crystalline walls that pulsed with faint light as if alive, and a gravity system so seamless it felt like walking on Earth. He barely had time to process the king's invitation, or command, before being whisked aboard. Maricela appeared beside him, her elegant robes flowing like liquid light. It is breathtaking, isn't it? She asked. Lucas nodded. It's a lot to take in. One day I'm patching up miners on Zalara, the next I'm traveling to another world with alien royalty. She smiled, her golden eyes warm. You've earned this journey, Lucas, and more than that, you've earned our trust. Chiron will welcome you as a hero. Hero. The word felt heavy on his shoulders. He was just a medic, doing his job. But as the ship neared Chiron, Lucas realized his life had already changed irrevocably. The planet came into view, and Lucas's breath caught. Chiron was a gem in the cosmos, a vibrant sphere of swirling blues and greens, with golden clouds shimmering in its atmosphere. As they descended, he could see sprawling cities that seemed to blend seamlessly with the natural landscape. The capital city, Cyrolith, was a masterpiece of architecture. Towering spires of translucent crystal reached toward the sky, their surfaces reflecting light in dazzling patterns. At the city's heart was the royal palace, an intricate structure that seemed to glow from within. When they landed, Lucas was greeted with a spectacle. Hundreds of Chironians lined the streets, their cheers echoing as Maricela and Thalric descended the ship's ramp. Lucas followed hesitantly, feeling out of place among the grandeur. They honor you as much as they honor us, Maricela said, sensing his discomfort. Thalric turned to him, his voice steady. Today you are no mere visitor, Dr. Grant. You are one of us. Inside the palace, Lucas was escorted to a private chamber. It was spacious yet minimalist, its walls adorned with intricate carvings that seemed to shift when touched by light. He barely had time to unpack his thoughts when a servant entered. His Majesty requests your presence in the council chamber, the servant said with a respectful bow. Lucas followed, his nerves building with each step. The council chamber was vast, its high ceiling supported by crystalline pillars. King Thalric stood at the center, surrounded by advisors and nobles. Maricela sat nearby, her serene presence calming the room. Dr. Grant, Thalric said, his voice resonating. You have shown bravery and compassion beyond measure. As a king, I value those who act selflessly for the greater good. For saving my mother, you have my eternal gratitude. Lucas inclined his head. Thank you, Your Majesty. I only did what I thought was right. And that is precisely why you are here, Thalric said, a faint smile breaking his stoic demeanor. I have decided to appoint you as the chief medical envoy of Chiron. You will oversee not only the royal medical facilities but also aid in improving the health care of our people. The room murmured in surprise. A human in such a prestigious position was unprecedented. Lucas hesitated, the weight of the offer sinking in. Your Majesty, I'm honored, but I'm just a medic. I'm not sure I'm qualified for this. Maricela rose, her voice gentle yet firm. Lucas, you have already proven your worth. This is not about qualifications. It is about trust and the bond you have forged with us. Thalric nodded. You are not alone in this. We will support you, as you have supported us. Lucas looked around the room, at the faces of people who had come to trust him despite their differences. Finally, he nodded. I'll do my best. Lucas's appointment as chief medical envoy brought immediate challenges. Chiron's healthcare system was advanced but centralized in the capital, leaving outlying regions underserved. His first task was to lead a medical expedition to the outer provinces, an opportunity to demonstrate his commitment to the Chironian people. Maricela accompanied him, her presence lending the mission both gravity and reassurance. The transport vessel they traveled on was stocked with advanced medical supplies and a small team of Chironian healers. Their destination was Liroth, a rural province recovering from a recent volcanic eruption. When they arrived, the devastation was stark. Fields were covered in ash, and the air was thick with the scent of sulfur. The local clinic was overwhelmed, its staff struggling to treat burns, respiratory issues, and other injuries. Lucas wasted no time. He coordinated with the local healers, using a mix of Chironian technology and human ingenuity to triage patients efficiently. His methods were unconventional but effective, earning the respect of the Chironian medical team. One evening, as he bandaged a child's burned arm, a local elder approached him. "You are the human who saved the queen," the elder said, his tone both curious and respectful. Lucas nodded. "I did what anyone would do." The elder shook his head. "No, not anyone. You risked yourself for another. That is rare, even among our own." Maricela, who had been observing from a distance, stepped forward. "Dr. Grant has shown us what it means to act with true compassion." The elder bowed deeply. "Then we are fortunate to have him." Their mission was a success, but it wasn't without its dangers. On their way back to the capital, their convoy was ambushed by a rogue faction opposing the king's rule. Lucas found himself caught in the crossfire, his instincts honed from years of emergency medicine kicking in. As blaster fire lit up the night, Lucas helped the injured to safety, using his medical kit to stabilize wounds, while Maricela and the guards defended the convoy. "You're surprisingly calm under fire," Maricela said as she fired at their attackers. Lucas smirked, his hands steady as he applied a tourniquet. "Comes with the job." The ambush was eventually repelled, but the experience left a lasting impression on Lucas. It was a stark reminder of the challenges ahead, not just as a medic, but as a part of Chiron's intricate political and social fabric. Back in the capital, King Thalric commended Lucas for his bravery and dedication. "You have proven yourself time and again, Dr. Grant," he said. "Your actions today reaffirm my decision to place my trust in you." Lucas, still recovering from the intensity of the mission, nodded. "I'm just trying to do what's right, Your Majesty." "And that," Thalric said, "is why you are here." As Lucas returned to his chambers that evening, he couldn't help but reflect on how far he had come. What had started as a desperate act to save a life had grown into something much larger. A bond with a new world, a new people, and a role that would define his future. Lucas's role as chief medical envoy continued to expand, and with it, his understanding of Chironian society. The royal palace became both a workplace and a home, its crystalline walls a constant reminder of the grandeur of his new responsibilities. Yet, despite the luxury and admiration, he remained grounded, focusing on what mattered most: healing and building trust. One of Lucas's most ambitious initiatives was a collaborative medical summit. He proposed bringing together Chironian healers and human scientists to exchange knowledge and techniques. King Thalric approved the idea, seeing it as an opportunity to strengthen ties between Chiron and Earth. The summit was held in the Hall of Unity, a grand chamber within the palace designed for diplomacy. Lucas, alongside Maricela, welcomed delegations from both worlds. The room buzzed with excitement and apprehension as representatives shared their insights. Lucas spoke with passion as he presented human advancements in trauma care, while the Chironians demonstrated their advanced nanomedical technologies. The exchange was not without its challenges. Skepticism from both sides surfaced, but Lucas's charisma and Maricela's steady leadership bridged the gaps. During a break, Lucas found himself in a quiet corner with Maricela. "I wasn't sure this would work," he admitted, watching as a Chironian healer explained nanobot regeneration to a human surgeon. "You underestimate yourself," Maricela said with a warm smile. "You've shown both our worlds that collaboration is possible. That is no small feat." Lucas chuckled. "I just want to make things better." "You already have," she replied, her golden eyes holding a depth of emotion he couldn't quite decipher. As the summit continued, Lucas noticed subtle signs of tension. Whispers among certain Chironian nobles hinted at discontent with the human presence in their halls. One evening, Maricela approached him with a grave expression. "Some among the court see your influence as a threat," she said. "They fear change and the bond you have forged with us." Lucas sighed. "I'm not here to take anything from them. I'm here to help." "I know," she said, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "But fear is irrational. It clings to old ways, even in the face of progress." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent summons. A royal guard informed them of a disturbance in the western province, a rebellion sparked by factions opposing the king's rule. Thalric had called an emergency council, and Lucas was to join. In the council chamber, King Thalric outlined the situation. The rebellion was led by a splinter group exploiting tensions among the outer provinces. Their leader, a former noble named Raelith, sought to undermine the crown by targeting supply lines and medical facilities. "These attacks threaten not only our people but the trust we are building," Thalric said, his voice firm. "We must act swiftly." Maricela volunteered to lead a diplomatic envoy, hoping to negotiate peace. To Lucas's surprise, she requested that he accompany her. "Your presence has become a symbol of unity," she said. "If we are to succeed, we need that strength." The journey to the western province was tense. The transport vessel carried only a small group, relying on diplomacy rather than military force. As they approached the rebel encampment, Lucas couldn't help but feel a mix of anticipation and dread. The rebels had established their base in a dense forest of bioluminescent trees. Their leader, Raelith, awaited them in a clearing, flanked by armed guards. He was tall and imposing, his expression cold as he regarded Maricela and Lucas. "You bring a human to our lands?" Raelith sneered. "Is this how low the crown has fallen?" Lucas stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "I'm here because I care about the people you're putting in danger. Whatever your grievances, there are better ways to resolve them than violence." Raelith's eyes narrowed. "You speak boldly for an outsider." Maricela interjected, her tone measured. "Raelith, we are not here to trade insults. We seek understanding. What do you hope to achieve with this rebellion?" Raelith hesitated, his composure faltering. "Equality," he said finally. "The outer provinces are neglected while the capital thrives. We are forgotten." Lucas saw an opportunity. "If that's true, then we need to fix it. But rebellion only deepens the divide. Let us work together to address these issues." Raelith studied Lucas, his expression unreadable. "And why should I trust you?" "Because I've already risked everything to save someone who wasn't one of my own," Lucas said. "Let me prove I'm here to help." The negotiations were fraught with tension, but Lucas's sincerity and Maricela's diplomatic skill gradually broke through Raelith's defenses. After hours of discussion, they reached an agreement. The crown would provide immediate aid to the outer provinces and establish a council to address their grievances. As they departed the rebel camp, Lucas felt a sense of cautious optimism. "Do you think this will hold?" he asked Maricela. "It is a step forward," she replied. "And sometimes, that is all we can hope for." Back at the palace, Thalric commended their efforts. "You have a gift, Dr. Grant," he said. "You bridge divides where others see only barriers." Lucas, still processing the day's events, nodded. "I just want to make a difference." "You already have," Maricela said, her gaze filled with admiration. Lucas couldn't help but wonder what the future held, but one thing was clear: his place on Chiron was no longer temporary. He was part of something greater, a bond that transcended worlds and united hearts. In the weeks following the negotiations, Lucas's reputation as a mediator and healer grew. The agreement with the rebels held, and as promised, aid flowed to the neglected provinces. Lucas and Maricela traveled extensively, overseeing the distribution of medical supplies and the establishment of new clinics. The tangible improvements helped to mend the rifts within Chironian society, and Lucas found deep satisfaction in the work. However, the success of the mission brought Lucas to a crossroads. King Thalric, recognizing his pivotal role in Chiron's stabilization, made an unexpected offer. "Dr. Grant," Thalric began during a private audience in the palace's verdant gardens, "your actions have not only saved lives, but have helped to unify our people. I would like you to consider making Chiron your permanent home." Lucas was taken aback. "Your Majesty, I'm honored, but I never planned to stay indefinitely." Thalric nodded, understandingly. I know, but consider what you have accomplished here. You have a unique ability to see beyond our differences, to heal not just bodies, but the spirit of our community. Maricela joined in. Lucas, you've become a bridge between our worlds. Your compassion and courage are what Chiron needs as we continue to grow and heal. Lucas felt a swirl of emotions. Chiron had become more to him than just a place of duty. It had become a part of his heart. Yet, the thought of leaving Earth behind was daunting. I need some time to think, he said finally. Of course, Thalric replied, giving Lucas a fatherly pat on the shoulder. Take all the time you need. Lucas spent the next few days in contemplation, walking the luminescent paths of Cyrolith and talking long into the night with Maricela about possibilities and fears. The more he thought, the more he realized how much he had changed. Chiron was no longer a foreign land. It was where he had found purpose and a sense of belonging. One evening, as the twin moons of Chiron rose, casting a soft glow over the gardens, Lucas made his decision. He found Maricela and Thalric together in the Royal Observatory, watching the stars. I've made my decision, Lucas said, his voice steady. I'd like to stay, if you'll have me. Maricela beamed, her relief and happiness evident. Of course, we'll have you. You're family now. Thalric expressed his approval with a broad smile. Welcome, Lucas. Your choice honors us all. The following day, a ceremony was held in the palace. The people of Chiron came in great numbers, filling the grand hall with a sea of shimmering colors. Lucas stood beside Thalric and Maricela, formally accepting his role as a permanent ambassador and chief medical envoy. As Lucas addressed the crowd, his words resonated not just through the hall but through his own heart. Today, I stand before you not as an outsider, but as a member of your community. Together, we have faced challenges, and together, we will build a future. The applause that followed was thunderous, the warmth and acceptance of the people overwhelming. Later, as the celebration continued into the night, Maricela took Lucas aside. They walked through the garden, now familiar and dear to him. You found your place here, Lucas, she said softly. Not because you were asked to stay, but because you chose to. Lucas looked at the stars, then at the city that had become his home. I came here as a healer, but I've been healed in return, he admitted. I've found more than a home. I found a family, a purpose. Maricela smiled, taking his hand in hers. And we have found hope in you. As they stood together under the starlit sky, Lucas felt a profound peace. Chiron was no longer a new world to him, but his world, a place where he had bridged the gap between stars, healed wounds, and found love. The journey that began with a crash had led to a new dawn, not just for Lucas, but for all of Chiron.